out on dates. You want somebody to come bring you flowers. Someone to talk to for hours. Watch your back while y'all sit in the
A South Memphis mother is dead tonight, according to police, gunned down while her kids were inside her home. Fox 13's Lakia Scott joins us live from where that shooting happened. Lakia, what have you learned about that investigation? We hear there's a suspect in custody. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Daniel. There is a suspect in custody. I'm learning that police got here to this scene at about 4:30 Saturday morning. This is Raynard Street, and we're actually only a few houses down from where that scene happened. You can also see that the crime scene tape is still lingering here at the corners from where officers had this area blocked off Saturday morning. I was told by one of the neighbors here that the victim had not been living here long. Now, police identifying the woman who was shot as Jasmine Eason, and the man arrested and charged with her murder is Kordelro Harris. According to the affidavit, Harris changed his story. Now, at first he told police 2 men wearing ski masks kicked in his bedroom door, stabbed him, and shot the victim. Now, court records state that when Harris spoke to detectives, he admitted to shooting Eason, telling them that he and Eason got into an argument.
It's 4:30 in the morning on a quiet street in South Memphis, Raynard Street, South Memphis, Tennessee, December 9th, 2023, 4:30 a.m. Police get a call, shots fired. When officers arrive, they find a woman critically wounded and a man with a stab wound to his hand. He already has a story ready. 2 masked men, he says. They kicked in the bedroom door, demanded money, stabbed him, and shot his girlfriend before running off into the dark. But there are 4 children inside that house. And within hours, their own words are about to unravel everything he just told police. Her name was Jasmine Eason. She was 32 years old, a mother of 8. And by the time the story is over, you'll understand exactly why the people who loved her say they weren't surprised. Stay with us. This is Trial of Clues, where every case has a story, every story has a trail, and somewhere within the trail are the clues. Today we are taking a closer look at a case that left behind more questions than answers. Let's get into it. Don't forget to share your comment, subscribe, and like. Before she was a headline, Jasmine Eason was a mother. 8 children called her mom. She was 32, living in South Memphis, and by every account from the people who knew her, she poured her energy into her family and her community. She was a hairstylist by trade, specifically a braider. Her cousin, Latrice Eason, later told reporters that Jasmine braided hair for people all over the neighborhood.
Who had dreams of taking her braiding business to the next level.
A hairstylist, she braided everybody here in the community.
It wasn't just a job. Family described her as an entrepreneur with real ambitions, someone who wanted to grow her braiding business into something bigger, something that could support her children long term. Those who spoke about her afterward didn't describe someone reckless or careless. They described someone loving, someone caring, someone who was always trying to help the people around her. But underneath that, her family says there was fear. Jasmine was in a relationship with a man named Kordelro Harris. According to her family, this wasn't a peaceful relationship. Latrice Eason would later tell Action News 5 that Harris was an abuser and that Jasmine lived in fear of him. That she was, in her cousin's words, always defending herself from him.
This guy, he was an abuser. He abused Jasmine, and I think she was afraid of him, you know?
That single detail matters more than it might seem at first. Because when you understand that Jasmine was already navigating fear inside her own home, the night of December 9th, 2023, stops looking like an isolated tragedy. It starts looking like the outcome of something that had been building for a long time. Something her family says they saw coming, even if no one could stop it. There's no public record of specific warning signs in the days or weeks right before that night. No documented prior police calls to that address. no known incident that immediately preceded it. What exists is the broader pattern her family described: a woman who loved her children, who was building something of her own, and who was afraid of the man she lived with. That fear turned out to be justified, not in the way anyone could have prepared for. Just after 4:30 in the morning, Memphis police officers responded to a shooting call in the 1300 block of Rayner Street, a residential stretch in South Memphis. When they arrived, they found 2 people injured: a woman critically wounded, a man with a stab wound to his hand. Inside the home, officers also found 4 children, ages 17, 9, 6, and 2. 3 of those children belonged to Jasmine. Both adults were rushed to Regional 1 Health, one of the region's major trauma centers. The man was listed in non-critical condition. Jasmine's condition was far more serious. Hours later, just after 1:30 that afternoon, police confirmed what the family had been dreading. Jasmine had died from her injuries. Publicly, very little is known about the exact nature of those injuries. No autopsy report has been made public. No outlet has reported the number of times she was shot or the precise cause of death beyond the fact that she was shot and did not survive. What we know comes from police statements and court records, not a medical examiner's findings. What we do know is this: the man found at the scene with her was identified as Kordelro Harris, 36 years old at the time, and by police accounts, her boyfriend. The 2 lived together in that home on Rayner Street, and almost immediately, Harris had an explanation ready, one that police would spend the following hours picking apart. He told them 2 men in ski masks, armed with guns and a knife, had kicked in his bedroom door. He said they demanded money. He said one of them stabbed him in the hand. He said the other one shot Jasmine. It was a detailed story, a frightening one. The kind of story that, on its own, might have sent investigators looking for 2 unknown suspects in the neighborhood. But he had made one critical miscalculation. He wasn't the only witness in that house that morning, and the people who were about to contradict him weren't strangers. They were children who had been there the entire time. Investigators didn't take Harris's story at face value. They did what good investigators do. They talked to everyone who'd been in that house. And that's where things started to fall apart. Police spoke separately with the children who'd been inside during the shooting. The 17-year-old told a different version of events. So did the 9-year-old. So did the 6-year-old. According to court records, all 3 of them contradicted Harris's account of masked intruders breaking in. There was no home invasion, no strangers in ski masks. Whatever happened in that house, it happened between the 2 adults who lived there. With the children's statements in hand, investigators pushed further. They obtained a search warrant for the Rayner Street home, and what they found only deepened the case against Harris. Inside, police recovered a bloody 9mm handgun, along with several spent shell casings. That handgun, it turned out, had a history of its own. It had been reported stolen during an auto burglary back in December of 2021. Investigators also found an AR-style Diamondback rifle, reported stolen years earlier in February of 2018. Alongside the weapons, officers found drugs in the home: a glass jar containing marijuana and a clear bag containing what was identified as cocaine. None of that lined up with a random home invasion. What it painted instead was a picture of a household with unregistered, stolen firearms, and a man whose story was collapsing under the weight of physical evidence and eyewitness accounts that didn't match. Eventually, confronted directly with everything investigators had gathered, the children's statements, the weapon, the inconsistencies, Harris changed his story. He admitted it. There were no masked men, no home invasion. According to reports, Harris told investigators that he and Jasmine had been fighting and that during the argument, she grabbed a knife and stabbed him in the hand. He said that's what angered him. He said he then retrieved a gun from a dresser, and as Jasmine was running away from him, he shot her. That's the account that ultimately went on record. Not two strangers in the night, but the two people who lived in that house alone in an argument that ended with Jasmine dead and a fabricated story built to cover it. It's worth pausing here on something the public record doesn't fully answer: exactly what led up to that argument. In the moments before the shooting isn't detailed anywhere in the reporting available. What's documented is the aftermath.
Saturday morning. This is Raynard Street, and we're actually only a few houses down from where that scene happened. You can also see that the crime scene tape is still lingering here at the corners from where officers had this area blocked off Saturday morning. I was told by one of the neighbors here that the victim had not been living here long. Now, police identifying the woman who was shot as Jasmine Eason, and the man arrested and charged with her murder is Kordelro Harris. According to the affidavit, Harris changed his story. Now, at first he told police two men wearing ski masks kicked in his bedroom door, stabbed him, and shot the victim. Now, court records state that when Harris spoke to detectives, he admitted to shooting Eason, telling them that he and Eason got into an argument. The document alleges Eason stabbed Harris in the hand, and Harris grabbed a gun off the dresser, shooting Eason.
The injuries, the lie, the unraveling, and eventually the confession. His full name, now on record in connection with all of it, was Kordelro Harris. And as investigators would soon discover, this wasn't the first time a woman in his life had accused him of pulling a trigger. In the days following the shooting, Memphis police formally charged Kordelro Harris. The charges were extensive: second-degree murder, 2 counts of possession of a controlled substance, 2 counts of theft of property, aggravated assault, and possessing a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. That last charge tied directly back to what investigators found in the home: the stolen 9mm, the stolen rifle, both linked to burglaries years before Jasmine's death. But as reporters and investigators dug into Harris's background, they found something else. A case from 2 years earlier that, at the time, had gone largely unnoticed. Court records show that in August of 2021, Harris was charged with aggravated assault and domestic assault. The allegation, according to those records, came from a former girlfriend, a woman who at the time was pregnant. She told authorities that Harris had shot at her while she was driving. That case never went to trial.
To court records, in August 2021, Harris was charged with aggravated assault and domestic assault. The case was dismissed due to lack of prosecution. Those court documents show his pregnant girlfriend at the time said he shot at her while driving. The girlfriend said Harris told her he would kill her.
It was dismissed due to a lack of prosecution, meaning it simply didn't move forward through the legal system for reasons that aren't detailed in the public record. 2 years later, another woman in his life was dead. To be clear about what is and isn't known, there's no public reporting connecting these two cases beyond the fact that they involved the same man and firearms directed at women he was in relationships with. No pattern was formally established in court prior to Jasmine's death. The dismissed 2021 case carried no conviction, no formal finding of guilt. But for a family grieving a woman they say lived in fear of Harris, the existence of that earlier allegation raised an obvious and painful question, one that no dismissed case could have answered in time to protect Jasmine. At the time of the charges, the legal process was just beginning. Harris was facing the possibility of decades in prison if convicted as charged. But between an arrest and a conviction, there's often a long and difficult road, one Jasmine's family would have to walk without her. Before that road even really began, there was something else the family needed to do first. They needed to say goodbye. Just 2 weeks after her death, Jasmine's family gathered to lay her to rest. Visitation was held on Friday, December 22, 2023, at Wolf Brothers Chapel in West Memphis, Arkansas. Family, friends, and members of the community she'd spent years braiding hair for came to pay their respects. The following day, Saturday, December 23rd, her funeral service was held at Pilgrim Rest Church, also in West Memphis. She was laid to rest at Marion Memorial. For a woman her family described as someone who was loving, caring, and wanted to help her family, the service was, by all accounts, a reflection of the community she'd built around her. The same community she'd served for years, one braid at a time. Her 8 children were left to grow up without her. 3 of them had been in the house the night she died. As her cousin Latrice put it at the time, they'd need counseling. They'd need real, sustained support to process what they'd witnessed. What followed her burial was a legal process that would stretch on far longer than anyone in that room could have anticipated. It would take nearly 2.5 years. Years in which her children grew up without her, before the courts would deliver any kind of answer. More than 2 years after Jasmine's death, the case finally reached trial in Shelby County. On May 14, 2026, a Shelby County jury reached its verdict. Kordelro Harris was found guilty on 6 counts, including voluntary manslaughter and employing a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. It's worth understanding what that verdict actually means. Harris wasn't convicted of the second-degree murder charge he originally faced. Voluntary manslaughter, under Tennessee law, generally applies when a killing happens in the heat of passion, provoked in a way that would cause a reasonable person to act without full self-control, as opposed to a premeditated or more clearly intentional killing, which is what a murder charge would require the state to prove. The jury's verdict reflects their judgment that Harris's account, the argument, the knife, the moment he says he snapped, met that legal threshold, even though he had lied to police in the immediate aftermath and even though he was the one who retrieved the gun. What actually happened inside that courtroom over the course of the trial, who testified, whether Harris took the stand in his own defense, what arguments the defense presented, what the prosecution said in its closing arguments, none of that was detailed in available public reporting. Coverage of this case, from the shooting through the verdict, has come almost entirely through police statements, charging documents, and brief updates from local outlets. There's no published blow-by-blow of the trial itself. What is known is the outcome. The jury didn't accept that this was a simple, understandable reaction to being attacked. 6 counts, including a felony firearm charge, reflected a jury that still held Harris responsible, just not for the highest charge originally filed against him. The verdict was in. Jasmine's family finally had an answer to the question of guilt. But one more question remained. How long would Harris actually pay for what he'd done? On Wednesday, August 13, 2026, Kordelro Harris returned to a Shelby County courtroom to learn his fate. The judge sentenced him to 20 years, 11 months, and 29 days in prison. As with the trial itself, the specifics of that sentencing hearing weren't widely reported. There's no public record of victim impact statements read that day or of the judge's stated reasoning for arriving at that exact figure. What's on record is the sentence itself, nearly 21 years, for a man who first tried to convince police that strangers in ski masks had done this. For Jasmine's family, the sentence closes one chapter of a story that began almost 3 years earlier, on a quiet street in South Memphis. It doesn't undo what happened. It doesn't give her 8 children their mother back. What remains is what her family described from the very beginning. A woman who braided hair for her entire community, who dreamed of growing that into something bigger, who loved her children fiercely, and who, according to the people who knew her best, spent the final period of her life afraid of the man she shared a home with. 3 of her children were in that house the night she died. They didn't just lose their mother, they witnessed how they lost her. Her family has said plainly that those children will need real long-term support to carry that forward. Some details of this case were never made public. What exactly was said in that courtroom? What a medical examiner's report might show? What Jasmine's final moments truly looked like? This story has been told using only what's been confirmed through police records, court filings, and the on-the-record words of the family who loved her. Jasmine Eason was 32 years old. She was a mother, a businesswoman, and by every account, someone who gave more to her community than she ever asked for in return. This is Trials of Clues, where every detail matters, every question deserves an answer, and every case leaves a trail. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn your notifications so you don't miss the next case. Until next time, keep looking for clues. If this story affected you, consider following along as we continue covering cases like this one. The ones where justice takes years but still finds its way through.